Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. I've got an amazing show for you guys. Later in the program, Hillary's back. She's making more excuses. I'll break that down for you, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and what she says. You don't want to miss that. The second hour is going to be amazing. There's three stories, unfortunately, related to race. I wish there were no stories related to race. One of them I will be surprisingly ambivalent towards, and I'm very curious what your guys' take on it is, and we're even going to do a poll on it. And I'm curious what Anna's take on it is because I haven't talked to her yet about it. Another one is depressing but very telling. But the third one has sent me into a rage. So second hour, I go on the warpath. It is shocking how unangry minorities are in this country. It's amazing. The majority should thank their lucky stars, but that's not how they perceive it, of course. Okay, I'm gonna go over here, guys. Actually, before I even do Hurricane Irma, you know what I'm gonna do? Jesus, take that off. I'm gonna call an audible here, literally. Omaha. Okay, I watched football over the weekend, and I have one conclusion. No, come back. Can you come back here and do it? But no sidebar, or do I have to do it this way? Okay, then fuck it, we're back here. Okay, I watched football over the weekend, and I'm here to give you my professional opinion on it. All right, fine, I mainly do politics, but we cover sports, and I cover football on TYT Sports, and we cover other things like reviews on What the Flick, etc. So, having watched almost all the games on Sunday, I think anyone who did will agree with me that the NFL needs Colin Kaepernick. Did you see the quarterbacks out there? They are in miserable shape. Colin Kaepernick is not the savior of the quarterback position. And yes, he led a team to the Super Bowl. Yes, he struggled after that. Is he among the top 32 quarterbacks? Did you watch those games? Of course he is. Now that's the first question. That's whether he's a starter. Is he among the top 96 quarterbacks where you make an NFL team? Of course. You're telling me you got to go 3 layers deep with those something bitches before you get to Colin Kaepernick? You can't even, he's fourth string on some of these teams? No way. Then we're not watching the same games. So look, I know San Francisco's a unique situation because at least they offered him a contract. But like one of the teams that needs a quarterback is San Francisco. I would argue even Arizona needs a quarterback. Carson Palmer's a disaster. They're not winning with Carson Palmer. Okay, let alone the actual crappy quarterbacks. So that's the football part of it. The political part of it is a conclusion that is inescapable after watching a weekend of football, which is that the NFL owners, whether it is their intent or not, I don't know or care what's in their quote unquote heart, a phrase that's a little repulsive and meaningless. Their actions are clearly racist. Okay, go ahead, conservatives, your heads explode. Oh, you're not allowed to use that word. I'm a snowflake, it'll make me melt. Okay, then go ahead and melt, and if you're an NFL owner, you go ahead and get triggered by that too. But we've all seen Colin Kaepernick play, and you know, if you're a football fan, that it is the most preposterous statement you've ever heard that he's not among the top 96 quarterbacks in the league. So why is he not in the league? Oh, well, some of the fans might be offended by what he does. Well, a lot of the fans are offended that he's not in the league. Well, I don't care about those fans. I care about the racist fans. Now, why is it racial? Oh, it's about the troops. It's not about the troops. He said he's taking a knee, and a lot of the NFL is now taking a knee to protest the disparate, provable, statistically significant racial disparity in how police treat minorities in this country. You say, well, I don't want to hear that. I like the current state of racism that we have. And if Kaepernick dares to exercise freedom of speech, we'll ban him from the league, even though on football grounds, it makes no goddamn sense at all. So just own it. Just understand what you're doing. Those incredibly wealthy, almost all of them incredibly conservative, right-wing billionaire NFL owners are basically raising their hand and going, yes, I'm a racist. Kaepernick makes me uncomfortable by pointing out the situation in America. Despite the fact that a lot of our football teams need a better quarterback, we're not gonna go to him because we are racist, and on racial grounds, we don't want a quarterback who makes us feel uncomfortable by pointing out the realities of America. One day, I guarantee it, that it's not gonna be just the left or the independents. The whole country will consider Colin Kaepernick an American hero for risking his career to make a political stand, as we did with Tommy Smith and the others in 1968, as we did with Muhammad Ali, as we have done over and over again. But for the moment being, the 32 racist owners of the NFL are keeping a guy who's clearly qualified to be in the NFL, not in the NFL because of racial issues. You go watch those games and tell me that, oh no, they got it. Those 96 quarterbacks are awesome, and they don't need Kaepernick, who led a team to the Super Bowl, and if his coach let him run a little bit more, might have won that Super Bowl. You're nuts if you believe that, and you're not a real NFL fan. You're using politics to make decisions about football. You know that if you only made decisions based on football, Kaepernick would definitely be in the league. You can have an argument about whether he would start. You would lose that argument too, but you can have that argument. You cannot make the argument that he's not worthy of being in the NFL based on his talents. So I'm just sickened as a football fan and an American. All right, now let's go do the rest of the show. Okay. I just weirdly had to get that off my chest. I don't know why we didn't plan it into the show. Anyway, so Hurricane Irma did hit Florida, but luckily it got downgraded to a tropical storm when it did. So of course that doesn't mean that Hurricane Irma did not exist. It did exist. Go ask people in Florida. In fact, we're gonna show you a video from Florida in a second that's amazing. Go ask people in the Caribbean as well. So I'm just saying this because there's lunatic right-wingers in our country who don't believe that anything happened unless it personally happened to them. Now Rush Limbaugh wouldn't know because he ran for his life, so he wasn't there. So Hurricane Irma death toll in the Caribbean was 39 in the last count. And now, unfortunately, in the United States, it is 8. Now, that is, of course, tragic. It could have been far worse if the evacuations had not taken place and if the storm had not gotten downgraded as it approached us. Not as it made landfall, because I think that a lot of people are making the same mistake we always make. Oh, this country was empty until we came to it. The hurricane, lost some speed as it made landfall. No, it made landfall in the Caribbean. And it hit the Caribbean incredibly hard. By the time it made landfall after landfall after landfall in the Caribbean and got to the western part of Florida, it had lost speed, thank God. So, but let me tell you some of the damage that was done. It left more than 5.8 million people in Florida without power, according to the State Division of Emergency Management. Roughly 83% of Monroe County, which includes the Florida Keys and Everglades National Park, is in the dark. But it was mitigated because nearly 7 million people from multiple states in storm's path were told to evacuate their homes, according to the Associated Press. So let me show you some of the pictures of the damage that was done. That's Miami. You're gonna see the amazing video in a second of downtown Miami, and we'll show you more pictures here as we go along. But if we had not evacuated the 7 million people, I fear the death toll would have been much, much higher. Thank God we took the right precautions, and nonetheless, 8 people died anyway. And it started as a Category 5 before it hit the islands in the Caribbean. If it had hit us as a Category 5, it would have been far, far more devastating. Luckily, like I've been telling you, it did get downgraded to a tropical storm by the time it hit us, and it did not hit the eastern side of Florida as hard as we thought it would. It went to the western side, but it did hit the Keys, and the Keys sustained a lot more damage. Now, even though it grazed Miami, it still did plenty of damage. Just imagine if it had hit it square at a Category 5. And this is what a tropical storm basically did when it grazed Miami. Take a look at this video.
All right, I don't know if you can see this. There is a sailboat that has broken loose from its pier, wherever it was docked. It is now floating loose in Biscayne Bay. It's obviously really bad news for the owner. Don't know if you can see that. We have a lot of debris. There's a big plank in the water right there from, I guess, one of the boardwalks here. The entire sidewalk is now covered in water. You You can see that the water is basically right on sidewalk level. So you're getting heavy rain over there in Brickell Key, and here in Brickell, the water is absolutely on sidewalk level. But yeah, here comes this boat. It looks like it's going to hit that pole, maybe dodge it. Oh, that's just terrible for that boat owner. Yeah, that's going to crash probably right into Bayfront Park.
Okay, that's videos from yesterday. We'll have a link down below to it. Some good work by a person in one of the high rises there. So look, this, of course, water all around Miami anyway. But you saw there that it has, in that case, just yesterday, took over the sidewalks, and you begun to get a sense of Venice instead of Miami there. And like I said, we got real lucky that it didn't hit us when it was a much stronger storm. That's what it looks like when it was a smaller storm and did a side blow. Imagine a major blow to Miami and how much it would be underwater then. So Jose's coming right behind it, but it is also not going to hit Florida. So Jose was parked behind, that's Hurricane Jose, but it is also losing power, and it has drifted out to the middle of the Atlantic. They say now there's a 25% chance that it'll hit northern United States, 25% chance it hits all the way up in Canada, and a 50% chance that it just drifts off into the Atlantic Ocean. So what could have been devastating is just really bad right now, and I think we got a little bit lucky there. So good news, generally speaking, obviously tragic for the people who lost loved ones in the hurricane, and still the great amount of damage that was done to property. But after seeing Hurricane Harvey, after having 4 hurricanes on the map at the same time, believe it or not, it could have been worse. Okay, now let me go to a goofy part of this hurricane story. Okay, as the hurricane was bearing down on Florida, Hurricane Irma, their Facebook post went up fairly early on in the week, in the middle of the week, really. So it described itself this way, the Facebook posted, yo, so this goofy looking windy head ass named Irma said they pulling up on us. Let's show Irma that we shoot first. So it was a Facebook post encouraging people to shoot into the hurricane, their guns. Now, we'll get into whether it was sarcasm or not, but let me give you a sense of how many people like that idea. Before long, the event took on a life of its own, as Mediaite explains, and over 50,000 people expressed interest in shooting at the hurricane, scheduled for Sunday at 10 a.m. Now, it got so crazy and so popular, this idea, that the local sheriff had to put out a tweet saying, don't shoot at the hurricane. So here's that tweet. It says, to clarify, do not shoot weapons at Irma. You won't make it turn around, and it will have very dangerous side effects. And it explains how if you shoot a bullet into a hurricane, it could swirl around and come back and hit you. I like the rifle in the corner there. It's showing you in graphic, like, okay, if you fire, it sometimes will come back around. Look, there's a lot of groups, including some terrorist groups, who like to celebrate by shooting guns into the air. They also forgot to take gravity into account. Those bullets then fall back and sometimes will actually literally fall on their heads and kill them. So shooting to a hurricane is a disastrous idea. I mean, but it is uniquely American. Now, Ryan Edwards, the guy who put up the post later afterwards, said, well, guys, it's here, referring to Irma. The moment we've been waiting for. It was cool to see the response this got from Facebook. On another note, I've learned that about 50% of the world could not understand sarcasm to save their lives. Carry on. And when asked why he did it, he said a combination of stress and boredom. Well, boredom seems to indicate I was just having fun. Stress is like, I don't know, I was kind of stressed and I thought maybe I'd shoot at it. But let's take Ryan at his word. And the way that he phrased it, that first graphic that I showed you, it did seem like sarcasm. Of the 50,000 people who liked it, I'm sure a lot of them did so because they were also being sarcastic. Were some of them actually thinking, oh yeah, that'll show them that Hurricane Irma, I'm gonna do this to you. Well, obviously the sheriff was concerned enough to put out a public notice saying you shouldn't do it. It reminds me of the sign I saw on the highway in Miami that said, don't stop in the middle of the highway. if you have to clarify that, we're already in a little bit of trouble. So only in America do you have to remind people, do not shoot at the hurricane. God help us. Okay, all right, now we go into an important story, Steve Bannon. Okay. Steve Bannon went on 60 Minutes with Charlie Rose, and they talked about a number of issues, but one of them was the James Comey firing. Here, there was a couple of interesting notes from Steve Bannon. Now, I want you to concentrate. It's going to be hard to concentrate because of the fact that Steve Bannon looks like a Sith Lord, even after they did their best efforts to clean him up. So you know how there's that saying, you clean up well? It does not apply to Steve Bannon. Anyway, but try to focus on the substance here, and we'll talk about it after you watch this.
James Comey was fired, correct?
As I remember, yes, sir.
Were you in favor of him being fired?
It's been reported in the media I was adamantly opposed to that. I don't want to talk about private conversations, but the media's reported I was adamantly opposed to.
It is also true, many say, and you're a smart guy, that if James Comey had not been fired, we would not have the Mueller investigation. True?
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any doubt that if James Comey had not been fired, we would not have a special counsel. Yes.
So we would not have the Mueller investigation.
Would not have the Mueller investigation. Would not have the Mueller investigation in the breadth that clearly Mr. Mueller is going.
Do you believe?
Because I think it's a very directional. I think directionally it's a very different.
Do you believe Mr. Mueller should be fired?
No, I do not.
Has there been discussions in the White House about firing him?
I would not tell you about discussions in the White House, but I would tell you nothing I ever heard like that.
Someone said to me that you described the firing of James Comey, you're a student of history, as the biggest mistake in political history.
That would be probably be too bombastic even for me, but maybe modern political history.
So, the firing of James Comey was the biggest mistake in modern political history.
If you're saying that that's associated with me, then I'll leave it at that.
Well, first of all, you're right there. So you can say anything you want. You don't have to say if it's associated with me. You're associated with you. Anyway, more random points before we get to the substance. His eyes look so pink, it's distracting. Sorry, I'm literally distracted by it. Charlie Rose is a great interviewer, but his hushed tones drive me crazy. Some say, and you're a student of history. No, he's not. He's not a student of history. You don't have to do that prelude before asking the question. Just ask the question. Okay, fine. On to the substance. So I think that Steve Bannon is making an understandable mistake here, and in some ways, you might be surprised by this turn. It makes me think that he's innocent. Okay, hear me out. So he calls it a mistake to fire James Comey because it just led to a special counsel, which now has led to a larger investigation. Well, it's a mistake if you think he didn't do it, and now you have this huge political headache that you didn't need to have. But Kushner, who some say advised Trump to fire him, and Trump himself, who did fire him, well, they know things that other people don't know. So if they know that there was a deal with the Russians, then and Comey was onto it, then it's not really a mistake. And you could say, hey, well, the special counsel will find that anyway. But that was their ham-handed approach to trying to covering up investigation, which they knew would lead to really, really bad results, which could get them thrown out of office. So why is Steve Bannon innocent? Look, you could say he might know too, and he thinks that the special counsel is more likely to uncover what actually happened, et cetera. Or he doesn't know about the deal. And he thinks, wow, what a dumb political thing to do to fire Comey and attract more attention and get a special counsel when you didn't do it. But Steve, he did do it. Why do you think he fired Comey? Why do you think he's been in a panic ever since? Why do you think he considered firing Sessions for not firing Mueller, the special counsel, and considered firing Rod Rosenstein? Why do you think he considered firing almost every single person involved in the investigation? Just because he doesn't like bad publicity? No. Just because he's politically naive? No. The reason he wasn't fire anybody investigating him is because he did it. That's the one thing that you guys are not adequately taking into account. So even so, Steve Bannon, the chief strategist for the White House until recently, says firing Comey, biggest modern political mistake. So we'll see how that turns out. We're going to see if he's right or wrong, depending on what Mueller finds. And he ain't find something, because it's there. All right, now let's go on to different parts of Steve Bannon's interview. Steve Bannon on 60 Minutes had a lot to say about different things involved in the Trump organization and administration. First, he talks about immigration and DACA here. Let's hear him out.
There's no path to citizenship, no path to a green card, and no amnesty. Okay. Amnesty is non-negotiable.
America was, in the eyes of so many people, and it's what people respect America for. It is people who've been able to come here, find a place, contribute to the economy. That's what immigration has been in America. And you seem to want to turn it around and stop it.
You could be more dead wrong. America was built on her citizens.
We're all immigrants.
America was built on her.
Except the Native Americans who were here.
Don't give me. This is the thing of the left. Right. Charlie, that's beneath you. Right. America's built on our citizens. Look at the 19th century. What built America is called the American system. From Hamilton to Polk to Henry Clay to Lincoln to the Roosevelts. A system of protection of our manufacturing, financial system that lends to manufacturers, okay, and a control of our borders. Economic nationalism is what this country was built on, the American system, right? We go back to that. We look after our own. We look after our citizens. We look after our manufacturing base. And guess what? This country is going to be greater, more united, more powerful than it's ever been.
Okay, this is preposterous. I love that little aside. Come on, you're better than that. This is beneath you. No, it's not. He's having a perfectly rational conversation. And the reality is you're the one going to the bottom of the barrel. So let me explain. So Steve Bannon's like, oh, no. America was built on our citizens. It sounds like a nice sentence. And if you're a Trump supporter and not that bright, you go like, oh yeah, obviously citizens, that's who made the country. Who else would make it? Okay, well, let's just fill that out. The original pilgrims that came here, they were not citizens. America didn't even exist. They were actually the original undocumented immigrants. You want to talk about an illegal alien? Christopher Columbus was the original illegal alien. So I guess Steve Bannon is saying Christopher Columbus shouldn't have been here, didn't contribute to America. The Pilgrims, the Puritans, all those people, and by the way, the founding fathers, by definition, were not citizens. So, no, America built on the citizens. It's just not true. Let alone all those wave of immigrants, the Irish, the Italians, the Jews, and the Germans, all of those, let alone the Latinos, the Chinese, etc. Did they originally come as non-citizens? Of course, that's the whole point. Ellis Island, etc. They came as non-citizens, they eventually became citizens, and were an enormous part of building America. It's just a cutesy line he throws out there so the Trump guys go, oh yeah, obviously, who else would have built it? And I'm not even talking about the slaves that literally built this country and the South, who were clearly not citizens, and we can go on all day long. And the history of this country is people come here, they eventually become citizens, and together we built this country through those different stages. So were there citizens who are also an integral part of building in America? Of course there were. There was also non-citizens and immigrants of all stripes and varieties. And so what Steve Bannon wants to do is he wants to trick you into thinking, no. It's our guys who built it. And when he says citizens, it's barely veiled language. And today we see immigrants, because of some of the demagoguery of Steve Bannon and Donald Trump, as Latinos and Muslims, et cetera, that are coming into the country. But of course, immigrants, like I said, were also Italians, Irish, and all the other categories. So no, he's trying to get you all riled up that no, white people built this country, and that's the nationalism that he's talking about. And it isn't remotely true. Of course, white people had a huge part to play, but all the different races and all the different varieties of immigrants helped build this country all the way to the present moment. If they had said, oh no, that's it, only the citizens that are here are the ones that get to stay and build this country, you would have kept out people like Steve Jobs' dad who came from Syria, and then you wouldn't have had Apple. You would have kept out a great number of the CEOs in Silicon Valley, which is a growth engine for this country and a part of the reason why our economy is still in good shape. You would have done what every single empire that went into decline did, the great mistake that they all made, which is turn inwards, don't worry about the rest of the world, don't mix in, don't have an exchange of ideas, people, and trade. All of those mixing actually leads to better results. Part of the reason why America's #1 is because we accepted people from all over the world. And the bottom line was, do you believe in the American dream? Are you willing to work hard to get to it? And if you are, you're welcome. And that is the American idea, and that's the American idea that the nationalists like Steve Bannon don't like, don't believe in, and that is why they're opposed to the American idea. They view things in terms of race and not in terms of the American idea that we all love and that built this country. Okay, now one more from Bannon.
Republican establishment is trying to nullify the 2016 election. That's a brutal fact we have to face.
The Republican establishment.
The Republican establishment is
wants to nullify the 2016 election.
Trying to nullify the 2016 election. Okay. Absolutely.
Who?
I think Mitch McConnell, and to a degree, Paul Ryan. They do not want Donald Trump's populist, economic, nationalist agenda to be implemented. It's very obvious. It's obvious as night follows day.
You are attacking on many fronts people who you need to help you to get things done.
They're not going to help you unless they're put on notice. They're going to be held accountable if they do not support the President of the United States. Right now, there's no accountability. They do not support the President's program. It's an open secret on Capitol Hill. Everybody in the city knows it.
And so therefore, now that you're out of the White House, you go into war with them.
Absolutely.
So I think that the way that Steve Bannon and Donald Trump handled Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan was a mistake, and I think that they blundered into it and had terrible strategy surrounding it. But you might be surprised to find out that overall, I don't disagree with his idea. On two grounds. Number one, there is such a thing as a Republican establishment, as there is a Democratic establishment, and they do not agree with their populist bases. So the Republican establishment wants tax cuts, free trade, trade deals, and free trade is a wrong way of thinking about it anyway. Most people are in favor of free trade. They want trade deals that are geared to help corporations and only corporations, in my opinion. And Steve Bannon has a slightly different take on that, but he's against some of the trade deals. So there are things that Trump ran on that the Republican establishment does not like. That is absolutely true. Did they try to co-opt the Trump presidency and get him to go in their direction? Absolutely they did. Did they largely succeed? Yes, they largely succeeded. His administration is now filled with bankers and standard Republican politicians and people that are part of the military-industrial complex. So yes, the establishment largely won. I really don't think Steve Bannon's that wrong about any of that. Now, whether they should win is a different question. I can't stand the Republican establishment. Democratic establishment is better, but not much better. I can't stand them either. The only thing that's worse than those two parts of the establishment is the populist right that I think is barbaric and in favor of racial policies that I think are horrific, and a populism that I think goes in exactly the wrong direction. But is it true that Trump was in favor of that populism during the campaign, and did he win partly because of that? Yes. Is he going in a different direction now? Yes. And if you believe as Steve Bannon does, should you go to war with the Republican establishment? Yes. So the way that they should have handled it is they should have been strategic about how they did it. So if you are going to threaten specific Republican senators, you should threaten ones that have upcoming elections. And those upcoming elections you could sway and then send a message to the rest of them. And you should be cognizant of how many votes you need in the short term while you build towards votes in the long term. You should have candidates that are ready to run against them in primaries. These are all the things that you should do that Trump did not do because he is an imbecile. So I don't know the relative intelligence of Steve Bannon, but if he told him, hey, go get the Republicans before you pass any legislation, well, then he's an idiot too. It depends on how you do that strategy. There's a smart way to do it, and there was a Trump way to do it. The Trump way to do it was go punch everybody on your own side in the face and hope that it comes out well. No, that is very poorly executed. And if you thought that the establishment was heading in the wrong direction, Donald Trump, well, you showed it in a very curious way, but by hiring wall-to-wall establishment figures that are leading you in that direction. The reality is, Donald Trump doesn't know anything in terms of ideology between the populists and the establishment. All he knows is, how do I get elected? Well, oh, these crowds want to hear me talk against trade. Me against trade, yeah. Ooh, they like that. And then he gets into office and he's surrounded by these establishment figures. He's like, how do I get them to like me? Oh, I hire them and I do what they say. He only has enough brain cells to figure out who's in the room and how do I get them to like me. That's Donald Trump 101. He has no ability to strategize into the long term. That's what explains all this. Even if you agree with Steve Bannon's strategy, it was certainly not executed by Donald Trump. And it's possible that Bannon is just as dumb as Trump is, and he thought, no, man, what you do is you just go after all of them, man. You just go to war and then you just randomly hit them, and then 6 years later, Murkowski will see what happened. No, she won't. 6 years later, Trump won't even be in office. So at this point, since Steve Bannon's out of office and no longer the chief strategist Donald Trump, how bright or unbright he is a lot less relevant. We do know the imbecile in charge, and even if you think it's the right strategy, there's no way he executes it well. All he's ever done is bungle it, and that's what he'll continue to do because he's just not smart enough to do anything else. All right, we'll be right back, and we'll get into the Democratic establishment, including Hillary Clinton. Will she run for office again? She answered that question. And then what lessons did she learn and the establishment learn? Were they the right ones or the wrong ones? I have definitive answers when we return. I saw a picture of John. I was like, look at this fucking badass Viking he met on his trip. And I was like, oh wait, that's John.
Yeah.
Because his beard is so grown. I swear to God, I didn't recognize him. I thought it was like a dude from up there, like a Viking looking dude from up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, we've got our own Viking. Look at Johnny Pie. Johnny Pie, we miss you, big guy. And he was at Svalbard. We were talking about how he was going to go get the grains if he's the last person on Earth, and he's got to, or among the last people on that ship, and repopulate the Earth after North Korea. At least he's got the grains. He knows where it is. He can find it. Don't worry, humanity will be saved. Yet again, by a white male, John Idaho.
Can we eat in here?
All right, back on the Young Turks. Joy writes in, Cenk, the Fox callers of the Seahawks game dissed Bennett by saying there's going to be more to this story. It made me so mad. Yeah, the Vegas cops, by the way, if you don't know, so the Bennett was basically tackled by the Vegas cops when they thought there was a shooting. They just picked him out of a crowd and they put a gun to his head and said, "We'll blow your head off." And Vegas cops later said, no, it wasn't racial. It was because he was acting funny. Really, out of the thousands of people that were running around, you thought he was acting funny. And some people just, it's so funny. Some people just took the cops' word for it and was like, oh, well, then the cops say he was acting funny. You see how wrong you were? No, I don't see that at all. What do you mean by acting funny? They're like, oh, he was hiding and then running. You mean like everyone else who thought there was a gunshot? Anyway, yes, and unsurprisingly, the establishment on TV, also knuckleheads that are not in favor of Bennett and Kaepernick, etc. Bennett also takes a knee. That's during the anthem. That's why, or he doesn't stand for it. Gabby Marita says Venice instead of Miami. Soon it'll be more like Atlantis instead of Miami. I hope not, but I hear you. Woke Poppy says Steve Bannon looks like a coral reef with all those things growing out of his face. Okay, well that's I denounce and reject that. / I hear what you're saying. And then Brian Newton says fuck Steve Bannon. Okay, just to be clear. All right, now we're moving forward. Let's go to Fox. Okay. There was a discussion on Fox and Friends, so brace for impact. And they're going to be talking to Ryan Zinke, who is now the Interior Secretary, and they're going to talk to him about the monuments. They were talking about 9/11. The monuments came up. Now, it makes sense because they're referencing a memorial built to airline passengers who took down the last plane. United 93 was headed towards Washington, we believe, and the people on board there were absolute heroes, and they took down the plane and cost them their own lives, but at least saved the lives of so many others. And there's a memorial built to them, Flight 93 National Memorial. But Ducey's going to ask something that makes no sense at all. Let's watch it, and then I'll break it down.
Portion of the monument, but really reflecting on how great this country is, the sacrifices we've made, and also talking about the change that 9/11 brought to all Americans.
Do you worry 100 years from now someone's going to try to take that memorial down like they're trying to remake our memorials today?
Well, I'm one that believes that we should learn from history, and I think our monuments are part of our country's history. We can learn from it. Since we don't put up statues of Jesus, everyone's going to fall morally short. And I think reflecting on our history, both good and bad, is a powerful statement and part of our DNA.
So first of all, I says Ducey. Sorry, I meant Brian Kilmeade. So look, let's break this down. And I know it's hard to believe this, but it's not personal. Kilmeade seems like a good guy. He just is such a bad point to make, such a terrible point to make. So the monuments that you're talking about in the South that people took down or want to take down now were by people who attacked America. It's literal, and if you don't know this, you should actually read your history. The Civil War cost so many more American lives than 9/11 did. Now 9/11 is deeply tragic, and this is the 16th anniversary of it. And we all know plenty of people, or a lot of us know plenty of people who were in New York that day. And one of the guys who founded the Young Turks with me was covered in all that debris when he was near the crash site. So we don't have to get into all that. We don't have to compare notes on that. But the Confederacy also attacked America, and they also lost. So if you built a monument to the Union that won the Civil War, if you built a monument to, for example, Abraham Lincoln, which I'm pretty sure we did build a monument to in the middle of Washington, that makes a lot of sense because they saved the Union, they fought for America, they saved America. Same with the guys on United 93. They fought for us at great personal sacrifice and saved a lot of lives. But if you build a monument to the people who attacked America, that includes the Confederate generals and the Confederate leaders, it's like building a monument to the people who attacked America on 9/11. Could you imagine if we built a monument to Muhammad Atta? Would I want that one torn down? You're goddamn right I would. So if you're gonna make an analogy, try to use a tiny bit of logic to go along with it. I know for Republicans, that is really hard to do. And Kilmeade is not alone. Governor LePage up in Maine also said, and to me, it's like just talking about taking down the monuments. It's just like going to New York City right now and taking down the monument of those who perished in 9/11. It will come to that. No, it will not come to that because that makes no sense at all. They were on our side, the people we put up the monuments for in 9/11. They are the heroes on United 93 that we lost. They are the victims that we lost in New York and Washington. Those are the ones we built monuments to. Americans. We don't build monuments to people who betray America, commit treason against America, who go to war against America, and who lose that war. And if we do that, that's a mistake. We need to move those to a museum or to a graveyard or wherever they belong, but they do not belong in front of courthouses, state grounds, or anywhere else where Americans use their government and have their public spaces. Those people betrayed America and they are nothing to celebrate. Okay, now let's go to a guy who is not from America but should be celebrated. Okay. There's a Canadian politician named Jagmeet Singh. I didn't know about him before, I have to confess, but I'm glad I found out about him now. He is actually running to be the leader of Canada's new Democratic Party. He's a fascinating guy. I'm going to show you a video of him in a second, but first of all, his name is Jagmeet Singh, and he does town halls, which he calls Jagmeet and Greets. Boom, already love the guy. That's hilarious. That's right after my own punny heart. Now, his town hall is going to get interrupted by a right-winger, yes, they exist in Canada, who is going to say outrageous things. It's a little hard to hear her, but I want you to know that she's attacking for being Muslim. He is, of course, not Muslim. He's Sikh. It is a completely different religion. She sees a brown person in a turban and thinks, okay, I got this. I know what's going on. Now, this guy is running for the leader of Canada's new Democratic Party. You went to his event, did not bother to find out one thing about him. You got all worked up, I'm gonna go attack this Muslim and I'm gonna tell him what's what. You didn't do a Google search to find out if he's actually Muslim. But that's the thing, racists are so profoundly stupid and ignorant that there's no helping them, and they can't help themselves. So she's gonna talk about the Muslim Brotherhood and Sharia law, etc. And I want you to hear that, and it's important and interesting. But then listen to his reaction, which is amazing. Let's watch.
Is my voice carrying better this way, or is the mic better?
Carries great.
What do you like better?
Hi, my name's Jennifer. I asked if there was a process. There isn't one, so I thought I'd start off.
Hold on, give me 1 second.
My name's Jennifer. I'm a women's advocate and children's advocate.
1 second, 1 second. Can you hear this way?
Those are some facts. We know you're in bed with Sharia. We know you're in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood. We know by your vote.
Is this easier with the microphone, or is it better?
Don't touch me.
Microphone?
Don't anybody touch me, or I will contact the police immediately. I would like to know, call the police.
So just 1 second. Let's just, what do we believe in? We believe in love and courage, right? Love and courage. Love and courage. We believe in love. We believe in love and courage. Absolutely. Absolutely we do. We believe in love and courage. We believe in an inclusive Canada where no one's left behind. We believe in building a Canada that ensures that there's economic justice for everybody, right? And that's what we believe in. So my friend, yeah, that's it. And you are wonderful. And let's just say, as Canadians, do we believe in celebrating all diversity? Do we believe in celebrating diversity? Give it a round of applause for diversity. A round of applause for diversity. All right. It's okay.
Back up, lady. Back up. When is your Sharia gonna end? We know you're about the Muslim. We can tell by your votes. We all know.
That's it. It's okay. So what this is, we don't want to be intimidated by hate. We don't want hatred to ruin a positive event, right? We don't want hatred to ruin a positive event. So let's show people how we would treat someone with love. We welcome you. We welcome you. We welcome you. We love you. We support you and we love you. We support you, we love you. We all here, everyone in this room loves you. We all support you. We believe in your rights. We all believe in your rights. This room is a room filled of people that are loving and that will support you, but this isn't the best way to do it, but it's okay, we're gonna chat some more. My friends, we'll just sort this situation out. We'll be right back. I love you all. These are things that happen, it's okay. It's no big deal. We're not gonna be intimidated, it's all good.
Okay, let's break it down. First of all, people talk about white privilege, and we mention it from time to time on the show. It doesn't mean that all white people are rich. So I know that's how the right wing wants to play it. If you're sitting in the middle of Ottawa or Nebraska and you're a poor white guy, it doesn't mean that you live in a mansion and a yacht. It means that you have a certain set of assumptions about how you should be treated and how you do get treated that other minorities don't get to benefit from. So for example, in her case, she comes up and gets within inches of a politician. And I know Canada is a little different than America. In America, if a liberal protester got anywhere near a politician, they'd be tackled. If they were at a Trump rally, they'd be punched in the face, and they would certainly be escorted from the building immediately. In fact, we don't have to guess at it. Just last week, someone asked a question from not anywhere near Senator Toomey. He was doing an event on PBS in Pennsylvania. The guy's all the way in the back, and he asked a question about, look, we've been doing this event for a while. Did you hear the news about your daughter? Now, what he was trying to say is, if you feel for a second like, oh my God, my daughter's been abducted. Well, how about the people whose daughters are actually abducted by the US government and deported? So it was an interesting ideological and intellectual point that he was trying to make. Maybe not in the best way, but he was immediately arrested. Immediately arrested and escorted from the building with security. Now she gets right up in his grill and she says, I'll contact the police. Because her privilege and assumption is, the police work for me, they don't work for you. You look Muslim to me. No, and if I can just go up to a representative and get right in their face and threaten them, I can threaten everybody around them. And if they try to protect the representative, hey man, I'll contact the police. Don't you dare touch me. But you ran straight up to the guy. You're the one doing the threatening motions. No, look, I don't think that if she touched someone, it wasn't enough that I need her to go to prison or whatever. JR and I had a discussion about this off air. JR thinks she should be arrested. Okay, he's not here today to talk about it, but I don't need that. I don't need her to be arrested. But I also don't want that guy who asked a question from a progressive perspective in Pennsylvania to get arrested either. But there is a double standard. So if you're a right winger, and to some degree, yes, white, you can go up and not get arrested. You can just get in people's faces. You can call them, say that they're part of Sharia law and make up insane conspiracy theories about them, and everybody's got to tolerate it. But if you, oh my God, again, picture anybody, a liberal doing this, we know, it just happened last week. A black guy walks straight up to a politician. Again, Canada might be a little different. I know in America, a black guy bum rushes, a white politician gets in his grill, boom! Do you know how quickly he'd be taken down and arrested? It'd take about a second and a half. I mean, as quickly as the cops could run there, right? And imagine a Muslim guy gets up in a white politician's face and says, I know what you did. I know what's wrong with your religion. I'm gonna get you. The degree to which he would be arrested and not let out is indescribable. So look, go to the town hall, say your crazy conspiracy theories when it's your turn. There's all those people there, they all went to go talk and they're not a lunatic like you are. So wait till you get the mic like everybody else does, and then go on, go ahead, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's a free country in Canada. You're free to be insane. So say to him, hey, look, I think you're part of the Muslim Brotherhood taking over. And then he would say, well, I'm actually Sikh, I have nothing to do with Muslims. But even so, and like a woman in the crowd said, I am Muslim. And he could tell you, no, Muslims in Canada are not looking to impose Sharia law, and here are the reasons why, etc. You could have a rational and civil discussion about it, but that's not what she wanted. But I thought he did a wonderful job in shutting it down and greeting her the same way Martin Luther King said. He said, we don't go to the South just to liberate black people. We also went to go liberate, in that time, the white racists in the South from the hatred in their heart, because it doesn't help them either. It's also, last thing is that it's a little depressing to see they walk among us. You know, if you saw that woman in the middle of Canada, would you think, oh, that's a lunatic who finds people from random religions and attacks them and thinks that somehow Muslims are going to take over Canada? But like here in America, there is unfortunately not just one or two of them, there is a decent percentage of the population who are insane, who think, yeah, Sharia law is about to take over. The most powerful people in the country, in our case, are the ones that cross the border from Mexico. They're the most powerful people in the country who believe in insane things that aren't remotely true. And they live among us. Not much we could do about that, but I thought Jagmeet Singh handled it perfectly there. All right, I got to take a break. When I come back, finally, Hillary Clinton, has she learned anything from the election? If not, we're here to teach. Ooh.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, I want to do a YouTube live clip, but not live. Go. I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I first got my license, like 17 years old or 17, 18, whatever it was. And I'm driving, I think, my dad's Oldsmobile. And I parked it in a place where there was two cars next to me, really tight spot, and a car behind me. I don't even know how I got in there because I'm a terrible driver. Back then I was an even worse driver. And on the roads I'm okay, but in parking spots I have terrible spatial reasoning and I'm a mess. And on my way out, I hit all three cars at once. I broke all records, okay? So I went, as I'm backing out, I went boom, oh shit. And this side hit that car, this side hit this car, and the back hit the third car, okay? And I got stuck. I didn't know how to get out. Like I went, okay, this, and then I'm like, no, and then, right? And then finally I had to stop, go inside the KFC and go, I'm sorry, I hit a bunch of your cars. They're like, what do you mean a bunch of your cars? I'm like, I don't know.
Wow, there's a B?
Yeah, I'm like, I hit 3 cars, I don't know. So you guys gotta come help me, okay? Okay, so one, my bad, really sorry about that. Okay, number 2, can someone take my car out? Because I don't want to keep hitting your cars and I'm incapable of taking it out of this spot.
He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
He said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
Back on the Young Turks, Peter Hamby writes in on YouTube Super Chat about Donald Trump firing Comey. It's a mistake if it's not intentional. Trump committed an error in firing James Comey. There is a difference, Steve Bannon. And then also on YouTube Super Chat, this is from Friday's show. Caranola wrote in, I'm going to vote for Jank. There's more of a shirt to see on him. Love you, John and Mark. That was on Who Wore It Better, me or John Idarola on the Bernie So Punk shirt. I think that is a backhanded compliment if I've ever heard one, that I've got more shirt to wear. But nonetheless, I'll take it. I appreciate your vote. If you want to vote and see the video, tytnetwork.com/shirt and go to shoptyt.com to get your own. All right, last two tweets for you guys. Digital Shard says, I wish I had a quarter of the patience of Jagmeet Singh. I hear you on that, brother. And Jeremy Kohler writes in, that man is a saint. Are there Sikh saints? I don't know, don't care. He is one now. About the same attitude I have towards religion. I hear you, and to Jagmeet. We go to Hillary. All right. Now, there's no question that Hillary Clinton made some monumental mistakes during the 2016 election. Otherwise, how could you lose to a guy who was polling at 37% on the day of the election, who was, at the time, appeared to be the most unpopular person who had ever run for president? Now, she did get 3 million more votes than him, but did not win the Electoral College, so there was a ton of mistakes made. And she wrote a book called What Happened? I know that the book doesn't have the question mark, but it might as well, because apparently she doesn't get it. So in the book, she's blamed almost everyone but herself, and she does the obligatory, sure, there were mistakes made, but her real passion is when she's blaming others. So New York Times has an excerpt that I wanted to read you guys, where she blames Obama for her coal miners line. Now, before I read it to you, the New York Times description of that, I want you to understand, you remember when she said we're gonna put a lot of coal miners out of business? You might have seen that clip out of context. You might have seen it in a Trump ad. Now, she was actually saying that rhetorically, like, are we gonna put a lot of coal miners out of business? And she went on to say in the next sentence, no, what we're gonna do is create new jobs with new technologies and actually bring new jobs to that area. She didn't have to run from that clip at all. She should have attacked on that clip. She should have said Donald Trump is a liar who lies about that on purpose, took it out of context on purpose because he's a goddamn liar. She should have used those same exact words. She should have said it in a debate. She should have challenged them on it, and she should have challenged the media to do their homework on it. That would have been a more aggressive campaign, a campaign that had a much better chance of winning. Instead, she thinks, yes, it was a mistake to say that, even rhetorically asking it, which is, that's not a mistake. Anyway, and then it's Obama's fault. How in the world did she get there? Let's find out. She made a connection between Mr. Obama and what she called her biggest gaffe of the campaign, telling voters in Ohio, quote, we're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. Mrs. Clinton insisted that the line was taken out of context, but said Mr. Obama had fed the narrative of Democratic hostility toward coal miners by announcing a plan that set state-by-state targets for carbon emission reductions and a framework for meeting them at the White House next to the head of Environmental Protection Agency. Now, let's break that down into its two parts, which are both disastrous. Well, one is, Obama made me say it. No, he didn't. He didn't make you say it in that way. I mean, if it wasn't for his policy, I wouldn't even be talking about that. Obama didn't run the campaign. He won the two campaigns he ran, including the one against you. No, you have to take some degree of personal responsibility. You're becoming a caricature of what the right wing described liberals as. You've got to take some personal responsibility that you said those things. And yes, it was out of context. And yes, you didn't put it into the proper context, which would have been the right thing to do. And you should have fought back hard on that. But then to turn around and blame Obama for it, it is playing the blame game in really the most outrageous and ridiculous way. And then the second part of the problem here is, but when you look at the substance of the issue, Obama actually did something great for climate change. It was one of the few areas where he was fairly progressive in his second term. It's not a credit I often give him for being very progressive, but in that case, credit where credit is due, he did the right thing. And Clinton thinks, oh my God, he put me in a tough spot by being a progressive and doing something that was progressive, making me defend it and then making me say something I shouldn't have said. Oh, that's so wrong in 1,000 different ways. Because for her, the right wing must be appeased. So if you make a mistake in the right wing direction, you have to blame it on someone else, it's a real mistake, etc. But her attacks against the left, she never apologized for. In fact, she doubles down in the book about those, and she doesn't consider them to be a mistake, when in reality that cost her so many more votes. So in the book, she talks about how single-payer healthcare will, quote, never ever happen. But that's why you lost the election, whether you think that single payer is a good idea or not, even whether you think it's practical or not. How do you not understand that you enervated your own base? You sapped them of their energy and their desire to go out and fight for you and vote for you by saying, oh, your priorities, they're never ever gonna happen. But she doesn't even think that's a mistake because she thinks like a Washington right-winger. She thinks, well, you spit on progressives and they better like it, otherwise it's their fault you lost the election. For right wing, you go, oh, I'm so sorry, coal mining companies. Obama made me say those terrible things about the giant coal mining companies, when in fact I love you, I'm so sorry. God damn it, it's even worse than that. Here's another excerpt from the book. When she says, she's talking about the same situation, Bernie Sanders asking her to do more. She says, someone sent me a Facebook post that summed up the dynamic in which we were caught, referring to like Bernie's promises of whether it's free education, college education, or single payer, etc. Bernie, this is the Facebook post she's quoting. Bernie, I think America should get a pony. Hillary, how will you pay for the pony? Where will the pony come from? How will you get Congress to agree to the pony? Bernie, Hillary thinks America doesn't deserve a pony. Bernie supporters, Hillary hates ponies. Hillary, actually I love ponies. Bernie supporters, she changed her position on ponies. Which Hillary, hashtag which Hillary, spelled the other way. Headline, Hillary refuses to give every American a pony. Debate moderator, Hillary, how do you feel when people say you lie about ponies? See, that's her vision of what happened in the election, which is progressives. You think you can get a free college education for your kids and they get to live the American dream? No, that costs $75 billion a year. But wait a minute, Hillary, you voted for the Iraq war that cost $1.5 trillion at a minimum. And you thought that was affordable, but when it comes to the American dream, you said, not for the middle class, what do you want, a pony? And she revels in it. You say that you're theoretically in favor of single payer, but will never ever get it. Oh, you want a pony? And then you say, well, no, I love ponies. I mean, I'm not gonna fight for a pony. I'm not gonna give you a pony. I'm not gonna do anything in going in that direction at all. But I guess you guys wanted, fine, I'll say it. And then you won't give me credit. And you thought the moderators were against you? On which planet? Every single time. Bernie Sanders, you're a socialist. Now look at what happened in Cuba, and we'll look at what happened in Venezuela. So why don't you tell us how you're not like Fidel Castro and you're not like Hugo Chavez? These are not practical, Bernie Sanders. How can you explain your impractical positions? In every single debate, they supported you 100%, but even then, no, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. Oh, you thought the moderators leaked questions to you. But she thinks the moderators were not on her side. And she views progressive with great disdain, and you can see it in her own book, and she doubles down on it, and then wonders why she lost. That's why you lost. And yes, there were many contributing factors, James Comey, the Russians, the weather, etc. But those factors always exist. You can't say afterwards, but it rained that day. You've got to be able to win even if it rains, even if you get a couple of curveballs. Afterwards, to blame your own side and apologize to the right wing, and to take some of the few progressive accomplishments of Obama and then denounce it afterwards. That's why you lost. Trump's voters got excited for him, showed up to vote. Yours didn't. It wasn't their fault. It was your fault for not understanding them and actually showing them, hey, here is how you could get a college education for your kids. Here's how you could get single payer. She never believed it. She thought, if I say that, it'll be a convenient lie. But in reality, I don't think we're ever gonna get it. Well, if I don't think I'm ever gonna get progressive priorities, why do I bother to show up to vote for you? That's why you lost. Okay, apparently it wasn't clear enough, so I have to make it clear. All right, I'm not done with her yet. Hillary Clinton thought she made another mistake in the 2016 election. She says she shouldn't have said the thing about coal miners, even though it was totally taken out of context and twisted by Trump. She blames Obama for it. Okay, now another mistake is she says that she shouldn't have said the thing about the basket of deplorables. All right, let's go to a video explaining this.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Why do you think that word deplorable had been circulating in your mind?
Well, I thought Trump was behaving in a deplorable manner. I thought a lot of his appeals to voters were deplorable. I thought his behavior, as we saw on the Access Hollywood tape, was deplorable. And there were a large number of people who didn't care. It did not matter to them. And he turned out to be a very effective reality TV star in our presidential campaign.
When you said basket of deplorables, you energized.
No, but they were already energized.
But you offended some people who didn't personally feel deplorable at all.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I'm sorry I gave him a political gift of any kind.
That was a gift.
But I don't think that was determinative.
Okay, so first of all, in this clip from CBS Sunday Morning, I object to Jane Pauley's description of and framing of this more than I do Hillary Clinton's. Now you offended the right wingers. Come on, man. But that's how people in Washington and New York think. If you just appease the right wing enough, they'll vote for Democrats. No, they won't. No, they won't. They were already energized. Hillary Clinton is right about that. And so the guys who are in the basket, and are half of his supporters deplorable? Goddamn right they are. Half of them actually care, hey, my God, my wages haven't gone up, the establishment is screwing me. They are correct in assessing that. I don't think Hillary Clinton thinks that, I think that. But the other half are racist, sexist, misogynist, etc. You name it, bigoted, hate Muslims, hate Latinos, don't particularly like blacks. That is true. You think those guys are like, oh, heaven forfend, I am offended that you called me deplorable. I will now vote for Donald Trump before I wasn't going to. They were gonna vote for Trump no matter what. That's because they're already deplorable. So, God, the groups think the conventional wisdom in these power circles drive me nuts, and that is why Democrats lose election. No, you have to kiss their deplorable ass in order to win. It's in the hopes that racists will vote for a Democrat. No, what you have to do is energize your own base. And look, the only part I disagree with Hillary Clinton in that clip is at the end when she says I gave him a political gift. I don't think it was a political gift at all. In fact, here, I want to ask you guys about it. We're doing a poll. Was calling half of Trump supporters a basket of deplorables a political mistake? Now, if you took this poll in Washington, it'd be 99-1 or 100-0. They'd say it was a mistake. Curious what you guys think. TYTnetwork.com/deplorables. I think the mistake was not that she said that, but that she apologized for it. She should have aggressively backed that up and energized her own folks to show up to vote. So I think her conceding that it was a political mistake is wrong as well. But I think the next clip is more important. What did you do wrong? She talks to Jane Pauley about that as well.
I understood that there were many Americans who, because of the financial crash, there was anger and there was resentment. I knew that. But I believed that it was my responsibility to try to offer answers to it, not to fan it. I think, Jane, that it was a mistake because a lot of people didn't want to hear my plans. They wanted me to share their anger. And I should have done a better job of demonstrating, I get it.
No, you don't get it at all. So okay, let me explain why that answer is deeply depressing. It's not that people were angry and they wanted you to show that you understood their anger. They wanted you to actually understand their anger. Your problem wasn't that you were an insufficient actor, that you did not act the role well enough. And that's apparently what the conclusion she came away with. It is that you did not understand the source of their anger and share at least that frustration. So I understand the source of their anger. Their wages are incredibly depressed. Their productivity for the American worker has gone up consistently throughout the last 100 years. But wages started flatlining in 1980. Difference between wages and productivity since 1980 has been $12 trillion in lost wages that got redistributed to the top that should have gone to the American worker. Should you be angry about that? Goddamn right you should be angry. Now, Hillary Clinton would never say that because she's not actually angry about it. And she thinks, no, my job is to not fan those flames. Just to, hey, everybody, cool it, calm down. Now, in the internal conversations I had with Wall Street bankers, which are now leaked and we know what she said, she told them, now, I know you're not responsible for the crash in 2008, and if I'm president, I need you smart people to tell me how to run the economy. Oh my God. That's why you lost. It's not that you didn't go out there and demagogue. It's that you didn't understand the frustration and the root of it in the first place. You thought Wall Street still has the answers. People didn't misjudge you. Unfortunately, they judged you accurately. Now, Trump was a monster, and that's why I thought you should vote for Hillary Clinton instead of Donald Trump, because just because Hillary Clinton was wrong about all that stuff doesn't mean you should go with the greater of the evils. And boy, that greater of the evils is now plagues us all. But it doesn't make Hillary Clinton a saint either. It doesn't make her campaign right. Her campaign never understood and connected with the American people because they didn't share their experience. So they ran in the Democratic Party, ran a deeply establishment candidate, which is what Hillary Clinton is, in a populist time, and she lost to a populist demagogue, not because the demagogue was right about his ideas for how to fix the system, he's horribly wrong, but because you didn't even realize we need to fix the system. And the American people are sick of this system, and they are right. And so why are we continuing to hash this out? Partly because she has a new book, she's got to blame everybody else, and she's got to make more money, and so that's why she's back in the news. But the other reason for hashing it out is because, for God's sake, don't make the same mistake. Not Hillary Clinton, but the Democratic Party. If you run another establishment candidate who thinks, oh, I know how to win, who cares why the American people are angry? Of course they're wrong. Those loser populists, they're wrong, they don't understand anything. The elite know what's good for them. But I'll pretend to be angry. Oh, for Christ's sake. Then you're gonna lose again. For God's sake, learn the right lessons. Okay, last thing about Hillary, and this one's quick. In Jane Pauley's interview with Hillary Clinton, she asked another important question. This one, luckily, has the right answer. Let's watch.
Is your political career over?
Yes, as an active politician, it's over.
You will never be a candidate for office?
I am done with being a candidate, but I am not done with politics because I literally believe that our country's future is at stake.
Oh, she's done running. Oh, thanks God. Okay. The Clinton ambition is unbridled. So that was not a foregone conclusion. And there's a lot of talk out there like, oh, maybe. No, not maybe. Don't call me maybe. So, okay, that's a good thing. But you know what? I wanna give her credit here for the last part of the answer. So a lot of people say, go away, go back in the woods. We've even run that poll, to be honest. Okay, that is if you were going to run for office again. And I disagree with her on her view of the Democratic Party, and we'll fight her on that. But that's okay. But if you say, no, I'm going to stay in the fight, I'm not gonna run as a politician, but I'm gonna stay in the fight and fight for the things I believe in, for example, against Donald Trump, well then here. No need to go back in the woods. Put on your walking shoes as Obama claimed he was gonna do and get out there. You know what? Don't leave it at going on fancy TV shows with your fancy friends. Don't leave it at writing fancy books and getting paid a lot of money for it. Actually put on your walking shoes. Let me see you in North Dakota the next time there's a Standing Rock. Let me see you at a protest. Let me see you at a strike. Let me see you at civil disobedience to get money out of politics. Could you imagine? And right now, I know what all of you are thinking. No, I can't imagine. But if you want to join that fight, even if on a side we don't agree with, but as long as you're fighting for what you think is best for the country, well then God bless. There's nothing wrong with that. And I welcome that, whether it's with us or slightly against us. And if it's against Donald Trump, I welcome it even further. As long as they're not going down the wrong path of running more establishment candidates, we need all the help we can get in terms of fighting in the right direction together. And if she becomes more progressive, and by the way, that often happens. Once they leave office and they don't have to take big donor money anymore, a lot of times even Republicans will wake up and go, wait a minute, why don't we have single payer health care? That's weird. Oh right, I was getting paid not to have single payer health care. Now, she might think that's impugning her motives. It doesn't matter. What matters is what's going forward. And my guess is if she's not tied to the donors anymore, you might be surprised she might become more and more progressive. Even if I'm wrong about that, have at it, Hoss. As long as you're not gonna run for president and have people go back in the wrong direction, keep fighting, sister. All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, if you thought I was angry at some of the things that happened in the first hour, wait till you get a load of me in the second hour. Because one of the racial stories has me absolutely fuming. We'll be right back and tell you about that.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it.
I'm gonna tell you a story and then I want you to tell me what you think about the way I reacted to the situation and if you thought it was acceptable.
Guilty. Oh wait, I gotta wait for the story.
I know Anna Kasparian has some stuff to say, and the world needs to hear it.
But then he became woke bang. I hate it.
I love it. I love it.
Jesus and I used to do this trick where we would elongate the videos so that we would look skinnier.
That is the most positive drug dealing story I've ever heard of.
Bears don't give a fuck. I trust you guys, audience. Don't let me down.
You don't believe in ghosts? Talking about pussy. Oh, don't.
The food in Turkey is phenomenal.
Hey, we got spotted TYT. What is this puzzle spell?
Oh, death.
Did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here. It's fine because I bury it. And you know what happens in that water? Turns the frogs gay.
And they can't stand the establishment. And then I slipped and fell on my ass.
Guess I gotta get comfortable here.
That is tomorrow's joke. Cenk, when your time is up, what wouldn't you do for just one more day?
I'm gonna try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
Hottest club I've ever been to is my bedroom. People often say that you are the Jasmine of TYT.
Yep.
Please, I am not with you, baby. You gotta let me go.
Oh God, this hurts so bad.
You're alive, you're alive. The last day is not any more valuable than today is.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody. I am your host, Francis Maxwell. Jason here. Welcome to TYT Sports. Turks and Jerks, TYT Sports.
Steph Curry signed with Under Armour.
Tom Brady's mad, by the way.
Do you hear me? Back on TYT Sports!
Actually, leave a link in the description box below instead of lying about leaving a link in the description box below.
Editor, throw up another picture of the UK bacon. And another. And in fact, throw in another one.
Let me see your belly.
Beast mode.
Back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you, coming in with music that reminded me of Stranger Things. So first, let me update you on a couple of polls. On Friday, we asked a very important question: who wore it better for the Bernie So Punk T-shirt? This is a poll I'm losing. I got to be honest with you. Johnson 65%, Ahmed is Xiao 35%. If you want to go take a look at the picture and vote, tytnetwork.com/shirt. Onto a poll that's relevant to the story I just did. Hillary Clinton lost the general election because of, we asked this last week, Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. Now it has almost 15,000 votes, and Bernie's picked up more votes. He's all the way up to 2.6% of people think it was Bernie's fault. 97.4% of people think it was Hillary Clinton's fault, or at least people who watch the Young Turks. Bill O'Falafel writes in on YouTube Super Chat, what didn't happen? Bernie Sanders, that's the book. You know, her book is What Happened? That's the book is What Didn't Happen. It's Bernie Sanders, a fair Democratic Party support, a fair debate schedule, and most importantly, Bernie would have kicked Trump's ass had Hillary corruption failed. Okay, last couple of tweets for you guys. Eric Husso writes in, if your football team lost as often as the DNC, you would get new coaches, not blame the fans. That is an excellent point. Unless, of course, you're actually in the NFL, you would get a new coach, but you would not get a new quarterback if his name was Colin Kaepernick. And finally, Chris Allen says, I don't want a pony, I want a Bernie. Oh, sorry, one last one. Aaron M. Rewa says, also, everyone in Europe already has a pony, shouldn't be impossible. Okay. All right, Anna, we've got unfortunately a lot of racial stories here. We didn't make them up; they're in the news today.
Yep.
They are. I'm going to have ambivalent feelings towards some of them. Okay, not the first one. So I just want the audience to buckle up.
All right, let's go. The family of an 8-year-old who was allegedly lynched by white teenagers have released images of the 8-year-old. Now, his identity is protected, so we are not going to share his identity, but we are going to show you the photo of the injuries that he sustained as a result of these teenagers putting a noose around his neck and pushing him off a table. It is a graphic image. I want to warn you guys before I show you. Let's take a quick look.
Okay, he survived. They hung him, but he didn't die.
He didn't die, yes. Luckily, he survived, but he had to be airlifted to a hospital to undergo an immediate emergency procedure to ensure that he wouldn't die. Now, according to the victim's grandmother, he was playing with a group of children and teens when they began to taunt him with racist epithets and throw sticks and rocks at him. Now, I want to note that there were no adults present. We have no adult witnesses. We just have the account of this 8-year-old. Someone stood on a picnic table and the group wrapped a rope around a nearby tire swing around the boy's throat, then kicked him off the table. The victim swung back and forth 3 times before he was able to free himself. None of the teens came to his aid. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. This is a freaking devastating story. And then, we have a statement from the police chief, which
makes it way, way worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, I read the headline of this story and I thought, well, look, wait a minute. Now, his injury looks terrible, but we need more context here. Was it friends and they were goofing around? I remember there was a rope near a lake by our house, and who knows, maybe you goofing around, you get caught in the wrong way, right? Are they friends? Are they not friends? And then how do the authorities react? Do they take it seriously? Do they not take it seriously? We'll get to that in a second. And when you hear the details, no, it's worse than I imagined. So, look, kids have complicated relationships. I remember I used to get into fights with some older kids in the neighborhood, and then we'd coexist. We'd be on the bus, and even sometimes might have not a friendly relationship.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, okay? No, I don't care what excuse anyone makes, and I know you're not trying to make an excuse. I know I just interrupted you in the middle of your thought, but I just have to get this out. These are teenagers, 14 and older. We don't know their identities because they're minors and the police do not release the identities of minors who are involved in an alleged crime. But A teenager knows that you don't put a noose around anyone's neck and then push them off a table, okay? That is attempted murder. That is not what you do. And they didn't come to his aid. He could have easily died. They were throwing racial epithets in his direction, in his way, prior to putting that noose around his neck. They know what a noose means. They know what that rope meant. I'm not making any excuses for them. I'm not buying into anyone's excuses of them. This is an 8-year-old biracial child, okay?
Okay, so let me go to the police chief's quote on it, and then I'll finish my thought. Mark Chase, Claremont police chief, said, this is graphic 6. These people need to be protected. Not the kid who was hung. He's referring to the kids who hung him. He said, mistakes they make as a young child should not have to follow them for the rest of their life. Okay, so now I set all that up in terms of how it could have gone, but it didn't go that way. This case is absolutely clear. Anna's right. So look, we don't need to make it personal, and I hope in order for you to empathize, but I'm going to because it affects me. I have a 7-year-old biracial son. Now he happens to be half Chinese, but the Steve Bannons of the world don't like Chinese people either. Furthermore, it's much worse than that. This is in New Hampshire. I've got a godson who's black, who lives in New Hampshire, who's right around this age. Some 14-year-olds who don't know him, hang him from a tree and don't help him, goddamn right that's attempted murder. Look, if we don't have justice in this country, it's gonna get to a really bad place where vigilante justice begins.
We don't have justice in this country.
And we don't want that. We don't want that under any circumstance. But you start hanging our kids, and then the fucking cop says we got to protect the kids who did the hanging? Are you insane? Are you insane? Now look, if you say, hey, look, man, come on, have some empathy for the 14-year-olds don't know what they're doing, and they're minors, and that's why we have the rules about minors don't get tried as adults. Then under no circumstances should another black kid in America ever be tried as an adult. We can't have two different systems of justice where you say, no, if it's a black kid, it's a super predator. Let's go throw the book at him. I don't care if he's 14 or 13 or 12. Let's try him as an adult and let's put him in prison forever. But if it's a young white kid in the middle of New Hampshire and 3 of them hang a black kid and then leave him to die, and then leave him to die. And then I go, oh, poor innocent little mistake. No, people make mistakes when they're 14, not like that. And you say, under no circumstances am I gonna try white kids as adults. Well, then don't try anybody as adults if they're under 18. But you gotta have the same thing. If you don't stop prosecuting black kids as adults and you let them get away with this, no deal. Attempted murder, because that's what it was. Try them as adults or never try anyone in the country again as an adult if they're under 18. But they're not going to, guys. We don't make this stuff up. This is their actual reaction. Is this guy, the police chief, Mark Chase, a vicious racist? I don't know. I don't know what's in his head. I don't give a damn what's in his stupid heart. But are the results of his actions racially tinged with deep stereotypes and discrimination? Yes. If out of state or in state, it doesn't matter. 4 young teenage black kids hung a white kid from a rope. You think that Mark Chase and other cops wouldn't be talking about trying him as an adult? We wouldn't be talking about attempted murder. Well, for those black kids, they would have said, oh, it's just an innocent mistake. They were goofing around and they hung this poor white boy from the tree. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Let's just, let's just make sure it doesn't haunt them. Is the kid okay? Whatever, right? No. We're all Americans. And I know that a lot of people in this country have not internalized that. They think, no, I'm an American. And they don't necessarily even consciously think this, but their reaction is clear as day. White people are Americans. You're biracial, you're black, you're something else. I mean, do you really have the same rights as me? Well, if we don't, we gotta know, because then that's trouble. The reality is we're all supposed to have the same rights and be protected in the same way. And our kids are not protected. And that is a recipe for disaster.
8-year-old kid.
They're asking for fucking trouble, man. I don't even want to talk about it, but
I think the hardest part about this story is that we're talking about young people who did something like this. You know, we're talking about teenagers, and oftentimes when we're talking about race relations in the country and racial tension in the country, we think, okay, well, younger people know better. You know, they're raised in a better society where it's more integrated, and hopefully they don't learn the type of hatred that older generations have learned. But the fact that 14-year-olds did this, they just thought an 8-year-old's life was that worthless, that they would tie a noose around his neck and just leave him to die is devastating.
And they got taught this, and not only by, I don't know what's going on at home, man.
It's just really, it's hard to stomach how much dark shit is out there. Anyway.
I fear what I'm gonna say next. So look, how much can people tolerate if you start hanging their kids? And what's the conversation you have with those other parents? What's the conversation you have with the cops? And then if you get angry, what do? They call you an angry black guy. Are you fucking kidding me? How would you react if somebody hung your 8-year-old kid? How the fuck would you react? How are we supposed to react? No, the police chief's reaction is what put me so over the top. Oh, are those 14-year-olds gonna be okay? How about the kid who got hung? Jesus Christ, didn't you see the picture? But they don't, see, this is where some people to the left of us say we're naive. Because we think it's the police training, we think it's this, we think it's that. And they say, no, guys, they believe in the stereotypes, they believe in the discrimination, and they think that your life doesn't matter. They think if you're black, your life doesn't matter. Oh my God, how are the feelings and the emotions of the people who hung you? That's what matters. That's why it's called Black Lives Matter. Because maybe we still don't get it. Like that cops across the country, not all of them, but a lot of them think, no, we shoot the black guys. We don't shoot the white guys, just like the guy in Georgia just said the other day. And then they do it. They do shoot the black guys. And then if your kid is hung, they don't give a fuck about your kid. They care about the feelings of the people or the kids who hung your kid. This ends very, very fucking poorly if we don't fix this as a country and do it together. Look, and luckily minorities are nothing like some of the vicious people in the majority and in the right wing in this country. Because I don't know any minority who thinks that it's okay to hang a white kid. I don't know anybody like that who thinks, oh yeah, that's no big deal. But how about the emotions of the people who hung him? That doesn't exist. This instead is the shit we have to deal with. All right, let's take a break and come back and do other stories.
Today is truly a historic day with the Supreme Court decision that makes same-sex marriage legal nationwide.
So this is one of those days in American history, it doesn't come along that often, where we have expanded the circle of liberty.
Look, all we try to do on this show, okay, is to give you perspectives, right? So you can get a better understanding.
We need to change our mentality and understand why these people are trying to leave their own countries and everything that they've known, everything that they've built.
Yeah.
It's not to come here and harm you.
Anytime you force someone, like they did in Arizona, to carry their paperwork, it's to remind them every day that they do not belong in your society.
Now that is the sound of fascism beginning here in America.
Doesn't that scare you? Don't you see history repeating itself? That xenophobia and faux populism to get people worked up to attack outsiders.
That is violent rhetoric, and your violent rhetoric translates to violent actions. If you don't get that, well, you're either in denial or you know it's true and you just don't want to admit it.
What's the message we're sending to the rest of the world? I mean, give us your poor, you're tired, and we will greatly mistreat them under horrible conditions where some of them will die. That's not what the Statue of Liberty says.
If you asked me to come up with something insulting to Latinos, I couldn't have done anything like this. I wouldn't have thought to insult their grandkids.
2/3 of the people shot when they're unarmed were blacks and Latinos. That means they were wrong. They're like, who cares? Shoot them, shoot them, shoot them, shoot them.
Look, my dad was born in Syria. My dad could have stayed in Syria and he could have been a victim of all this, right? And the thought of the United States saying no to Syrian victims, I don't know, it makes me incredibly emotional and incredibly angry because I think it goes against what this country's about.
The fighters, the warriors, the ones who go the extra mile, in this case literally, to provide for their family and to look for that American dream. And they shouldn't be forced to live in an American nightmare. All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm gonna read a bunch of tweets. It's all, of course, about the story we just did. Ashley B says, it's heartbreaking, go Anna Kasparian, you're so right, that is attempted murder. Emily says, what 14-year-old doesn't understand that hanging a human being is murder? None. Jinho Choi writes in, arrest the teenagers who lynched the 8-year-old boy, charge them with hate crime and attempted murder, and try them as adults. The US is a racist country. Racism starts young. Who Oldcraft writes in, or Holdcraft, this is no fucking mistake. They tried to hang that kid. They wanted to kill that kid. By the way, they had a history of, as Anna pointed out in the story, throwing sticks at him and calling him racist names throughout. W.M. Crossan says, the child that was hanged will have to live with the incident for the rest of his life. Emily says, this is why I watch TYT, real people, real empathy, real tears. I love you guys. Davey M says, the more I hear what's happening in the USA from TYT, once again, I'm glad I don't live there. And in the past, I would have objected to that statement because I still do love this country. But sometimes they make it hard to. And we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But I think that I'm I have greatly underestimated, even to this day, the amount of racism in this country. All right, lastly, member shout outs, David Rothrock and Jay Luna. Thank you guys, you do make the show possible. tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, what's next, Anna?
All right. Recently, the Miss America pageant happened, and usually the contestants will make news because some of their answers weren't necessarily too bright. Let's keep it real. But this time around, a lot of the questions were extremely political, and a lot of the answers were thoughtful and deserve some credit. So let's start off with Margana Wood. She's actually Miss Texas. And she was asked about Donald Trump's reaction to the hate crimes in Charlottesville, right? And of course, he got criticism for it. And considering she's from Texas, I was curious to see what her reaction to that question would be. And here's what she had to say. I think that the white supremacist issue, it was very obvious that it was a terrorist attack. And I think that President Donald Trump should have made a statement earlier addressing the fact and making sure all Americans feel safe in this country. That is the #1 issue right now.
Great answer.
That is a good answer, absolutely. So apparently she's facing some backlash. I don't know, like, I haven't seen any public figure, criticize her for it. I'm sure people on Twitter or something like that have criticized her, but that was a good answer, yeah.
Yeah, of course people online criticize her because those people are the ones that support the alt-right and think that white supremacy is awesome. So, especially because she's from Texas, and she's white, they probably feel like even more betrayed. Wait, why aren't you for white people only? Well, she's not, so sad day for you. Sorry that you got triggered by that.
Yeah, so let's go to Miss New Jersey. She was asked about the Confederate statues. When asked about whether Confederate statues should be removed or stay in place, Miss New Jersey said they should be relocated into museums. So let me give you her exact answer. We are truly defined by our country's history, and I don't think it's something that we need to forget. We need to always remember it and honor our history of America because it truly makes us who we are as Americans, so they should be moved to museums. Which I think she was trying to play both sides a little bit in that answer, but I ultimately agree with her conclusion. Yeah, you take these Confederate statues away from public lands like state houses and courthouses and things like that, and you put them in their proper context. So if you want to remember American history, let's remember American history in its proper context. Either put it in a Confederate cemetery or a museum that has something to do with American history where you can actually describe and explain, who these figures were and what they did.
Yeah, so she gave a nuanced answer, and I think she is somewhat playing both sides, but it's okay. Look, they're not politicians. I disagree with the first part of her answer. We don't have to honor those Americans because they weren't Americans. They were Confederates, and they betrayed America and committed treason. So I don't have to honor them at all. But I agree with her that they should be in a museum because they are part of history.
Absolutely. And then finally, I want to go to Miss North Dakota. Her name is Kara Mund, and she was asked about Donald Trump's decision to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. These are like super political questions. I'm actually surprised and also delighted that they talked about some important stuff. Here's what Kara Mudd had to say. Climate change is, let's go to graphic 11A. I do believe it's a bad decision to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Once we reject that, we take ourselves out of the negotiation table, and that's something that we really need to keep in mind. There is evidence that climate change is existing, so whether you believe it or not, we need to be at that table, and I think it's just a bad decision on behalf of the United States.
That's also kind of a sophisticated answer.
Yeah.
Right, it's not to say like, and maybe they trained for this, but if they did, great job.
Of course they trained for it.
No, meaning like, were they gonna get this level of political questions and to be able to play off both sides? Because she didn't say that climate change is absolutely real and then we shouldn't have pulled out of Paris on those grounds. She's saying, well, we should be at the negotiating table.
No, she did say it's real. She said there is evidence that climate change is existing.
No, I hear you. It's just still, it's not like a super liberal answer. It's kind of saying like, well, shouldn't we be at the negotiating table anyway, either way? So, well, anyway, bless their hearts. Interesting, sophisticated answers, ones I don't all agree with, even if they calculated to get both sides. I think they calculated fairly well.
They did, yeah. Absolutely. I'm totally fine with their answers. And again, I like the fact that they're focusing on questions that matter. I mean, in the past they have as well, right?
Yeah.
Remember the Iraq War question that was asked years ago? I think that was like my first year or second year at TYT.
Was that Miss Teen South Carolina?
Yes.
Somebody who had like the worst answer ever. Go back and find that clip of ours here. In fact, we'll put a link in the description box for you because that was hilarious. Okay, last thing is, so they're Miss America, not connected to Trump. Trump used to own Miss Universe, but nonetheless, I'm happy that these pageants are finally getting the some smart contestants who are giving good answers, because as someone formerly involved in the process, being Mr. Jamaica.
You were never involved in the process.
I went to Puerto Rico to the Miss Universe contest.
That doesn't mean you were involved in the process. You're so unbearable. How do you manage to make every story about you?
My girlfriend was Miss Jamaica. I'm obviously Mr. Jamaica, and so I'm proud to see that these women are doing great and are representing their states well in this case.
Okay, great.
Like as we represented Jamaica back in the day.
Okay, as we represented Jamaica. Unbearable. All right, moving on to other news. YouTuber PewDiePie has gotten himself into more trouble with some of the comments that he's made. More recently, he did a live stream of a video game he was playing, and during that live stream, he decided to use the N-word to insult someone who did something during that game that he did not like. Now, in the video, PewDiePie can be seen getting frustrated with another player and shouting to him, "What a fucking N-word," and he said it fully with the ER at the end, before immediately correcting himself and saying, "Sorry, but what the fuck? What a fucking asshole." Okay, so the other then he also later on continued to kind of make excuses for using that word. The other player did a dick move, and I tried to think of the worst word, and I end up using the N-word. I know that no one watching gives a shit. Okay, so now PewDiePie has gotten in trouble in the past. His videos have gotten demonetized. He was kicked off of YouTube Red, which is the subscription component of YouTube, because of anti-Semitic jokes that he was making. And he was not happy about that, and he seemed a little apologetic and remorseful, but then he pulls this, and he's further getting punished as a result of his latest issue. In fact, Sean Vanneman, who is part of Campo Santo Games, has decided to pull copyright infringements, the video game version of copyright infringements, against PewDiePie in the videos where he uses their video games. Okay, so let me give you some of Sean's tweets. He says, "We're filing a DMCA, that's known as Digital Millennium Copyright Act, takedown of PewDiePie's Firewatch content and any future Campo Santo games." He continues to write, "I'm sick of this child getting more and more chances to make money off of what we make. He's worse than a closeted racist. He's a propagator of despicable garbage that does real damage to the culture around this industry." Now, if you check, you'll see that PewDiePie's full playthrough of Firewatch from 2016, which was viewed 5.7 million times, is currently unavailable. So now video game developers are taking action against him, and it's an interesting case. What do you think?
I do. I think it's very interesting. I met PewDiePie. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but I want to let you guys know we're doing a poll because I think that's a super interesting question as to whether they should have done that at Firewatch. So the poll is tytnetwork.com/pie. All apologies to Johnny Pie, and this is for PewDiePie. Should video game developers issue copyright strikes on PewDiePie? Really curious what you guys think. So let me tell you what I think. So I met PewDiePie at one of these YouTube get-togethers, and he seemed like a perfectly lovely guy. Now, did I spend hours and hours with him? No. Do I know him personally? No. Not well enough, right? It was a normal mid-sized conversation, and he's like, but I give you that context because with some folks you can tell right off the bat that they're a dick, and like if you said to me that, I won't name names, that guy had an issue with using Nazi imagery and saying the N-word, I'd be like, oh, not surprised, right? With PewDiePie, I'm significantly surprised. Now, I think I have a theory as to why. So after Charlottesville, he said he won't be using the Nazi imagery and stuff anymore because he saw, boy, they're real. and it's actually happening, right? Which I give him credit for. Like, I don't, and I might be totally wrong about this, but I don't get a sense of bad intent from PewDiePie. What I get a sense of is, we're past this stuff, so I'm joking around about it because it's no big deal. And that's why he says nobody watching is gonna give a shit. Because he assumes that everybody else thinks like he does. I'm really giving him the benefit of the doubt here. You guys make your own call on it. But he assumes, I think, like that they think like he does, which is, you don't actually hate black people, you don't actually hate Jews. So now, since we're past that, I could make anti-Semitic jokes or use the N-word. Now, don't get me wrong. He shouldn't, it isn't right, because we are not past it. I mean, earlier today we did a story about a black kid who got hung, or a biracial kid in New Hampshire with a rope, and the kids who hung him wouldn't even rescue him. They left him there to die. Luckily he didn't. So we're not past it. Yeah, we don't have to go anecdotal. We can give you exact statistics about racial disparities in this country, let alone across the world. So, and even in the context of this, he said, well, I mean, I said the N-word about him because he's a fucking asshole. But think about that, PewDiePie, right? His real name is Felix, but which everybody knows that's public. Is that, well, then you're using that as a clearly very derogatory word, and it is about black people. So
he knows it's a derogatory word. I mean, he admitted it himself later on in that same stream where he said, I wanted to think of the worst word possible, and I used that word. But
I think what he means there is like, that's a word you know you shouldn't use about people because it's so bad.
Yeah.
But they use it against black people. And so when you say like that's the worst word in that context, you're calling someone that. Look, you can take that to a point where you say, well, then you shouldn't call anyone a dick because that's disparaging to males. Or you shouldn't call them a pussy because that's disparaging to women. And some people do make that argument. I would, and I get that argument, but I ain't pulling anybody's videos off of that argument, right?
Right.
But the N-word is different. Nazi imagery is definitely different, right? So, but it's. Do you pull his videos? Do you put a copyright strike on?
Well,
him?
first of all, yes. If you are a video game developer who finds his behavior and his rhetoric objectionable, then you have every right in the world to do those copyright strikes, and that's what that video game developer decided to do. It's within his right to do it. I actually want to tackle this story from a different angle rather than trying to determine whether or not he's racist, because I don't know PewDiePie. I don't know what his intentions are. I don't know what goes through his head, and so. Whatever, right? But what I do want to mention is, this emergence of people whining and crying because YouTube demonetized some of their videos or some portion of their videos. And look, the reason why that happens is because advertisers all of a sudden realized that there are a bunch of assholes on YouTube that say a bunch of really terrible racist things. And so what happens in a free market? Everyone's always talking about the free market. Free market isn't just like, hey, we get to decide where we work and where we buy stuff. Free market also indicates that companies decide what they do with their money. Are they gonna advertise on content that they find objectionable? No. And so what happened is all of a sudden advertisers are afraid of everything on YouTube, right? And so everyone got demonetized, okay? Everyone's businesses got affected, right? So if you're gonna run around saying the N-word and use Nazi imagery, yeah, some of your videos are gonna get demonetized, homeboy. If you're gonna go to Tucker Carlson and whine and cry and bitch because you lost some money on YouTube for putting out all sorts of racist shit, no shit, of course that's gonna happen. That's how it works. That's how it would work in television, that's how it works in radio, that's how it works online. If you're gonna say objectionable things that companies are uncomfortable with, they're not gonna advertise on your videos.
Yeah, now I understand that actually it screws over all of us because then videos got demonetized for fighting against racism because it talked about racism.
Right,
it screwed over everybody. Hold on, I gotta finish this, okay? So on the other hand, my opinion is, no, don't do a copyright strike and take down the entire video. This is exactly the kind of situation. He's not an unreasonable person, he's not an insane person. We can actually have a conversation and maybe fix it, maybe get to have the whole country and maybe the YouTube community learn from it instead of shutting down the speech altogether. So I get that the company can do whatever they want, and so it's their call, not my call, but I wouldn't have done it. Instead, I'd engage in a conversation with PewDiePie. I think something fruitful can come out of that.
Anyway, I disagree. I think that they have all the right in the world. I would have done the same thing. I would have pulled my content from him and his channel.
That's why we have the poll. You guys tell us what you think. All right, we're gonna come back and do more TYT online. We'll be right back. We're right back, and so look, we ran out of time there. We got to end the show exactly at 8 o'clock Eastern for Sirius, for at least the radio show. But you guys know we keep it going online. So just to finish the thought on PewDiePie, Anna and I have a little bit different take on what his intentions are. But let me just give you why I think what I do. Look, there's some people who are hopeless. They're either taking a position because they're paid to. Rush Limbaugh, Dave Rubin, whatever, right? And you're not going to convince them, and having a conversation with them isn't going to do you any good at all. Okay, they're just going to do exactly what they feel is in their best financial interest. And then there are people who are hopeless in terms of being racist, anti-Semitic, etc. And you're not going to convince Richard Spencer not to be a Nazi. So I don't think PewDiePie is in that category, but I might be naive, and I certainly don't know him well enough.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know PewDiePie personally. I've never had a conversation with him. The only thing I do know about him is that he has already gotten in trouble for anti-Semitic jokes and anti-Semitic imagery. It seems like he didn't learn much from that because he pulls this again, right? And so, again, I don't know if he's racist or not. I just think that it's ridiculous that some YouTube creators think that they can do and say whatever they want, and that companies, that advertisers are gonna feel comfortable advertising on their content. And when I say that it affects all of us on YouTube, it's because YouTube doesn't have a bunch of live people that are constantly checking the content to make sure it's okay for advertisers. They do everything based on an algorithm. So if there are certain words tagged in that video, even if that video is completely fine and advertisers would typically be okay with it, just based on that algorithm and those words tagged in that particular video, they'll demonetize it. So all of us have been affected by it. And look, part of the reason why is with digital media, you don't have any rules. You don't have any, worry about ethics or, doing your job in a responsible way. You have all sorts of people putting all sorts of stuff out there. Yeah, advertisers are gonna get scared and they're gonna pull their ads.
There's one other possibility is that we don't know what his own political opinions are, but if a lot of the gamers are, I don't know why I'm hesitating in saying racist, whatever. If some of the gamers think bad things, and maybe he thinks it helps his fan base if he says those bad things.
Yeah.
Right, I don't know, I have no idea. But final thing that I'll agree with you, Anna, on is that they think like there should be no consequence to their speech. So like if you say outrageous things and then advertisers pull out, you might hate that and you might think advertisers are wrong, or you might think that that's not the right business model, whatever. Those are perfectly fine opinions to have. But you can't say you can't say, you know what, I'd rather take a dump in a Adidas than wear one. And then go, what the fuck, Adidas won't advertise with me.
Yeah, no shit.
This is a violation of my freedom of speech. No, it's not. Adidas doesn't have to advertise with you.
For the love of fucking God, everyone just read the fucking First Amendment. Please, just fucking read it. Sit down, just take 2 minutes of your life and read it and understand what it means, okay? A company pulling their ads from your shitty ass video is not a violation of your First Amendment. God damn it, man. I can't fucking take it anymore. It's like nonstop stupidity and I have to sit here and fucking deal with it. Like, please, just educate yourself on the First Amendment. Everyone's like, oh my God, the advertisers, they're pulling out of my video where I'm saying a bunch of racist, stupid shit. Yeah, that's what happens. Welcome to reality.
Yeah.
Fuck.
He also doesn't live in America and is Swedish. So
I'm not, by the way, that was a general statement about all the nonsense that we're seeing right now, not just specifically about PewDiePie.
No, I hear you, sister. All right, let's do the next story.
All right.
Which doesn't get any better, by the way.
A study set to be published in Research in Politics looked into the issue of housing affordability and housing assistance. And the researchers wanted to see whether or not Trump supporters are more inclined to be supportive or not so supportive if the housing assistance would go toward black people. Okay, so let me tell you how this study goes. When exposed to the image of a black man, white Trump supporters were less likely to back a federal mortgage aid program. Favorability toward Trump was a key measure for how strong this effect was. Now, they also wanted to do this study comparing minority Trump supporters to the white Trump supporters to see if there were any differences, but apparently there weren't enough minority Trump supporters to do a representative or a large enough sample to do the study appropriately. Now, researchers did deploy this survey experiment by sampling more than 700 white people on their support housing assistance programs. Respondents were randomly assigned a subtle image of either a black or a white man. The image of a black man greatly impacted responses among Trump supporters. After they were exposed to the black racial cue, they were not only less supportive of housing assistance programs, but they also expressed higher levels of anger that some people receive government assistance and were more likely to say that individuals who receive assistance are to blame for their situation.
Okay, this is deeply depressing. There's some important caveats to this. It's not the whole country. So Hillary Clinton supporters, it didn't make a difference if they were white or black. And in fact, among liberals, and the conservatives will go nuts over this, there was a little bit of a reverse effect. Now, the researchers say that it might have been because they think, well, a progressive might think that a black person is more disadvantaged in America, so housing assistance makes more sense for them. Whereas for a white person, they might be assigned more personal responsibility. One, that might be the researchers making excuses for them. Two, it's not right any way you slice it. You should treat them exactly the same. But three, for the Trump supporters, I should say three, for the liberals who was cued by a white guy's image and then marked down housing assistance a little bit, they did not then also say, I'm worried about crime, I don't believe in government at all the other things that Trump supporters also got triggered into. So it was only on that one portion, not on all the rest of the things that the Trump supporters then, in this case, literally got triggered by. And they got triggered by just a subtle image of a black guy, and they're like, that's it, housing assistance is bad. In fact, the whole government is bad. It's for government handouts, and we have a real problem with crime in America. I mean, that tiny little bit thing triggered all those negative thoughts in them, which then is the depressing part. And I think that even at this late stage, I still don't understand the degree to which a certain percentage of the country is deeply racist.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're learning and we're getting a better sense of that. But what also fascinates me is the fact that, these housing assistance programs wouldn't just help black people, they help everyone. Anyone who can't afford a home and needs some government assistance, right? And so think about these Trump supporters and how they're willing to shoot themselves in the foot just so they can be able to deny black people housing assistance. Like, you think that unaffordable housing only impacts black people? No, it impacts everyone.
Well, first of all, of course, whites get more housing assistance than blacks in the country. Now, the percentages might be different, and that's a fair point. But overall, there's a lot more white people in the country, and more white people get housing assistance. Now, and by the way, if you're a liberal who got triggered into saying, well, no, maybe we shouldn't have as much housing assistance, don't be preposterous. Doesn't matter if a white person or a black person is getting it. If they need assistance, and we think it's the right thing to do as a society, instead of letting them wander around homeless, then we should do housing assistance. It shouldn't matter at all what their race is. But to me, all that parade of horribles that got triggered by just seeing a subtle image of a black guy is amazing. And if you ask those people, they'll say they're not racist, of course. Almost all, I mean, there was a grand wizard of the KKK after Charlottesville got interviewed, and he said, no, I'm not racist. I just think white people are superior to black people. I'm like, oh, God. No one ever wants to say they're racist. So, but even those guys, they might not say outwardly racist things, the ones in the study, right?
Yep.
But it's in the back of their head. Black guy means scary. Black guys don't deserve it. And that is buried in, unfortunately, millions, tens of millions of people's heads in America. And that has consequences, and that has effects, including electing a guy like Trump, who then goes after minorities. Whether they call tough on crime. He's like, maybe encourages the cops to be, to rough people up, going after immigrants, going after Muslims, etc.
Yeah, and that is unfortunately Trump's winning strategy, which is what these researchers really wanted to look into. Like anytime he seems to struggle with, the legislative process and accomplishing anything that way, he usually turns toward some sort of, racial issue, some sort of race baiting. And it works with his base because look, you also have to keep in mind that, the lower the socioeconomic status for some of his voters, the more likely they are to latch onto that racial divide. And that's because it's a scapegoat. It's an easy distraction. It's an easy way to place the blame for their economic issues on someone who has even less power than they do. And that's the incredible thing. Like, we're all in this together, right? We're all gonna suffer from bad policies and current policies that are hurting us. And instead of focusing on fighting those policies, fighting those who are in power, who continuously screw us over, we're allowing ourselves to get completely distracted by fighting the most powerless people in the country.
Yeah, and by the way, to give even more context and be more fair to Republicans, the researchers say it did not apply to all Republicans. It was more specific to Trump supporters.
Yes.
So if you're a Republican because you want bigger tax cuts, well, we might have different issues with you, but you don't necessarily think black people don't deserve anything and are gonna bring you greater crime. So don't make assumptions about all Republicans. And part of the reason I bring that up is because it's important, and the other part is because politically it's relevant. It doesn't mean that 75% of the country is deeply racist. It means probably 25% of the country is. Now that is a depressingly large number, and we can see it, and you can argue 35% of the country, depending on how you want to count based on polling or the percentage of the vote, etc. right? But that's a big number, but it is not the majority. And let's also remember, Barack Obama did win. That doesn't mean that racism is solved in the country, but it means that there were enough people to vote for at least an African-American candidate twice. And so don't give up on America yet, but at the same time, understand that this is real, it exists, and politically how it is used. Because when Trump brings up Latinos or black people, so Central Park 5, they didn't do it. There was a case from a long time ago. Trump thought they should have been executed. They took a full ad in the New York Times to say to execute the kids. We find out decades later that they were wrongly convicted. They found the right person who actually did do it. Trump afterwards says, who cares, they should have been in jail anyway, we shouldn't let them go. That's the most unbelievable and one of the most deeply racist things I've ever heard. But that doesn't hurt him politically. It helps him because you cued your, whether conscious or subconsciously racist voters, black man, oh, I'm scared, I'm gonna vote for Trump. And it's amazing how that works, and it's also depressing how that works. But it is a real phenomenon, and the more we know it, the more armed we are to be able to defeat it. Okay, we're done?
Yeah, we're done.
All right, sorry, the second hour was unfortunately deeply depressing. I'm going to continue that theme in the postgame. Okay, all right. Now, I will also lighten it up, okay. So 2 things. One is, what happened when people made contact with tribes in the Amazon that have had no contact with other human beings ever?
That sounds fucking awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hold until you hear the story.
Okay.
And then the second part is, I ran into a hairdresser who's Jamaican. I told her that I'm Mr. Jamaica.
Okay, so this post game is going to be unbearable.
No, you're going to love her reaction. Okay, tytnetwork.com/join to hear the post game. Bye-bye.